Stewart.
Hello, Danielle.
Hello.
All right, we're going to talk about derivatives of inverses unless the battery dies.
All right.
Okay, but before we get
Get
into
to it.
derivatives, let's just remember what inverses are. Right, the inverse of a function undoes what the function does. Right? I always think of Fahrenheit and Celsius. Here's my little machine that turns degrees Fahrenheit to degrees Celsius. Are you with me? And here's my little machine that turns degrees Celsius into degrees Fahrenheit. Okay? So if I put in 32 degrees Fahrenheit into here, what spews out?
You get Celsius.
0 degrees Celsius. What happens if I put 0 degrees Celsius into here? What comes out?
32 degrees Fahrenheit.
32 degrees Fahrenheit. So these are inverses of each other. They undo each other. Okay? So, if I have that in mind, how would I undo the function f of x? Let's find that inverse. How would I undo it? Well, lots of times what we talk about is the input becomes the output and the output becomes the input. In other words, the x and the y swap. Are we comfortable with that? So if this is the y right now, in the inverse, that's going to be an x. And this is going to be the y. That is, believe it or not, the inverse right there. We're going to check this in a little bit. Should we just solve this for y just for all time's sake? All right, so I'm going to say that's 2y equals x minus 6, or y equals x minus 6 all divided by 2. Okay, am I still on there, Mr. Haas?
Yeah, I still got you.
Okay, so these I am saying are inverses of each other. All right, that seems to make sense. In this one, my input, I'm doubling it and then adding 6. Here, my input, I'm subtracting 6 and then dividing by 2. That seems to work. Should we just plug in some x's and y's and c's? Okay, give me an x, Danielle, give me an x. 4. When x is 4, that gives me 2 times 4 is 8 plus 6 is 14. Is that correct?
Yeah, that works.
Okay, so now, let's plug in a 14 here, and what are we hoping to get out? A 4, let's see if that works. 14 minus 6 is 8. 8 divided by 2 is 4.
Wow.
Okay, so those are inverses.
Yeah, this
All
math
right.
stuff really works. I love it.
I know,
Yeah.
isn't that fun?
All right.
So now the title of this thing is Derivatives of Inverses. How would I take the derivative of an inverse? Well, these are nice and straightforward ones, so I don't think that's going to be too hard. I mean, what's the derivative of my original function?
2.
2. All right. Do you think we could take the derivative of its inverse?
Absolutely.
I'm thinking we could do that. I'm just going to rewrite it here. Can I rewrite it like 1/2 x minus 3?
Yeah.
Is that legal?
Sounds good.
Okay. Just to make it easier, g prime of x, what's the derivative of that?
1/2.
1/2. Interesting. Interesting. Okay, so this is a very straightforward finding the derivative of an inverse. We found the inverse, and then we took the derivative, and then we saw something kind of interesting, which we'll talk about later. But what if we have a more complicated situation? Should we try that?
Yeah. Do it.
Excellent.
A man walks down the street, he says, why am I soft in the middle now? Why am I soft in the middle?